People shy away. They're like, I don't want that kind of pain. Either they're first time, you know, pregnant person and they are really, really scared of what everyone has told them, or they've had a baby before and they're scared of having that kind of pain again. We do have them understand before they start a Hypnobabies course of any kind that it takes work. It's the most wonderful work in the world. Labor itself is not work, and it's definitely not hard birthing work, which is another association that's very negative in people's minds. What if we called it the birthing or the birthing time?
Kerry Tuschhoff is the founder and director of Hypnobabies Childbirth Hypnosis and is a renowned voice in a wide range of pregnancy and childbirth concerns. As a childbirth educator since 1989, a doula and hypnotherapist, Kerry has developed many educational programs for pregnant people, birthers, medical professionals, and hypnotherapists. These efforts have become immensely popular and have started a chain reaction of interest to change the way that we give birth, how newborns are cared for, and the way that natural childbirth is perceived by the general public as well as the medical community. I'm so excited to talk to Kerry today because I know that these are questions that a lot of you have as well or will have in your life when you are having your next child or your first child or wherever you may be in your parenting journey. Welcome to the broadcast. If you find any piece of advice today that made you think differently, that made you smile, that made you laugh, or that educated you, please share this show with just one other person who could use it as well. So without further ado, let's talk to Kerry Tuschhoff. Kerry, it's great to have you on the show here today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I love to talk about hypnosis. I love to talk about hypnobirthing and how and also empowerment.
Yes.
That means how pregnant people can really make the kind of choices they need to make to stand up for themselves, to advocate for themselves, and have a better birthing, which will affect them basically for the rest of their lives.
Yes. And what you do is so unique and fascinating because hypnosis, as you know, you live in this world. Hypnosis, I feel, is a taboo subject even still. People hear hypnosis and they think like a stage act. They think like, a work party. The hypnotist comes and invites people up and puts them in trance and all those things. But hypnosis is really a beautiful thing because, and we'll talk about why that is, but especially the way you use hypnosis to help people who are pregnant or who are trying to get pregnant or even post-pregnancy, which I'm really excited to talk about. The reason I reached out to you is because, one, I find your work extremely fascinating, and two, my wife is currently pregnant and
Oh,
she's halfway through her pregnancy right now. And when I reached out to you, she was at that point in her pregnancy where she was feeling nauseous and she was having all the pregnancy symptoms. And I was thinking, I wonder who we can get on the show to talk about this, but from a very unique standpoint. And that's where your name came up. So I'm so glad that you're here with us today.
well, I'm so excited for you. Congratulations. And
Thank
to
you.
her, I hope she's going to do Hypnobabies. Let's get her hooked up.
Let's talk about it. That's why you're here. So when it comes to the way that natural birth and childbirth in general is perceived by the general public, what is that necessarily? And how does Hypnobabies and what you do, how do you guys do it differently?
Well, if you say natural childbirth, which to many people means it means unmedicated. It means, no epidural, no narcotics, none of that. Um, People shy away. They're like, I don't want that kind of pain. Either they're first time, you know, pregnant person and they are really, really scared of what everyone has told them, or they've had a baby before and they're scared of having that kind of pain again. So we don't really in Hypnobabies say, this is all about having an unmedicated birth. What it is using hypnosis to have a much easier, more confident pregnancy and the easiest, most comfortable birthing that you can have. Um, and that really helps people to just settle down from that unmedicated thing, because we do have, most of our students do go unmedicated. They're very happy, to use the tools at their disposal after they've practiced hypnobabies for 2 months, when they're in their birthing. And some people don't. Some people go into it thinking, I'll just use this hypno stuff until I can get an epidural. And then most of those people are really surprised that they don't need the epidural. But we do, of course, not promise anyone a pain free birth or any of that, because all kinds of things can happen when you're in your birthing time. There are many, many dynamics that go into childbirth, you know, uh, and as far as hypnobabies goes, hypnobabies is always the same. The techniques are always the same. The materials are always the same. Everybody gets the same thing, and how they learn, practice, and use it, and the dynamics of their birthing itself, and what happens, and the choices that they make, and the people around them, even. That's a big emotional component. Those things will determine the outcome of a birthing. But we don't want people to be scared of the word unmedicated, because I've had it. I've had an unmedicated birth, and it hurt so much. It was tremendous. So I have a healthy respect for people who shy away from that. But right now, I'd like people to understand that there's a different way to go that is going to help a lot. If you don't want, and the reason why people would choose to have an unmedicated birth is for themselves. Number one, because it will help the birthing flow much easier and more naturally when we don't interfere with all the chemical processes and the hormones and things like that by introducing drugs into it. The birthing won't be slowed down by having an epidural. There won't be an epidural fever or any of that. And of course, the baby it doesn't have the effects of medication in their system. So there's reasons why people would choose an unmedicated birth, and it can be much easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. It blows my mind how this isn't something that's more mainstream. It surprises me so much that really medication in general is the one thing that's talked about and offered, but hypnobabies is something it's not widely talked about. I mean, more now than ever because of the work that you've done, but it just surprises me that it's not more widespread. My question, and this is I guess a big question that can go in many different directions, how could hypnosis during pregnancy aid in a pain-free birth? That blows my mind because I know it's not guaranteed, but it's obviously happened when if that person didn't go through hypnobabies or a hypnosis regimen that you've created, they would have had a quote unquote painful birth. How can hypnosis lend itself to a pain-free birth? What's going on there? What does that look like?
Great question. First of all, I'd like to say that I acknowledge that there are people out there who have pain-free births, um, without doing anything. I had a girlfriend, and if I'd have been like her, hypnobabies wouldn't exist. But she went through her birthing, and she came out of it saying, "What's the big deal?" it was it was not that bad, and I don't know why people make a fuss. And you know, okay. However, that doesn't happen to most people. And so we do have them understand before they start a hypnobabies course of any kind that it takes work. It's the most wonderful work in the world, actually, because um, they get to sit and relax. I'm sorry, I'm just going to pull my drape back over.
Yeah, do your thing.
Uh, they get to sit and relax for a certain amount of time every day and listen. Just their whole body relaxes from start to finish, top to bottom. And in the whole track, start to finish, they're completely relaxed. and they get more and more relaxed. And then the hypnosis suggestions come in, and they're able to just listen to these powerful, and I call them suggestions, but they're mental directives, basically, to the subconscious mind. So let's start with that. So if you can imagine that the conscious mind is an outside circle, okay, so an outside circle. And then the subconscious mind is this little circle in here in the middle. But in between the outside circle and the little thing in the middle, there's a circle called the critical faculty. And what we need to do, because that will allow in and sometimes out things into the subconscious mind, we need to let it take a nap. So in hypnosis, what we do is we relax the body, and that allows us to relax the mind and get past the critical faculty and into the subconscious, which is like a 5-year-old child, basically. So you tell the child, this is happening, and they go, oh, really? And the subconscious doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. So every single day, our students are listening to tracks. They start out with 2 specific tracks, then they move on to 2 more specific tracks, then they move on to 2 more specific tracks, and so on each week, so that each of those things build upon each other. For instance, if hypnosis will actually compound itself. Compounding means build upon. So for instance, if I told you to go home and build up your arm muscles, can you give me a widescreen for this?
Totally.
Thank you. So if I told you to build up your arm muscles, and I gave you a 5-pound weight, and then every day you came and you did this and you did this and you did this. Then the next week I gave you a 10-pound weight, and you did this and you did this and you did this. Then I gave you a 15-pound weight, and you did this and you did this. After a certain number of weeks, you would have quite a nice little muscle there.
Yeah.
By compounding it, by adding, and that's what we do in hypnosis with the subconscious mind.
Wow.
And the subconscious mind, it contains everything we've seen, done, heard, experienced, felt. They're all in files. So we're going to grab that file that says childbirth beliefs, and we're not going to take it out. We're just going to let it rest over here, and we're going to build a new file that says childbirth can be much easier. It's a natural, normal thing, and it's going to be much more comfortable. You will still feel all of the sensations, the pushing, the pulling, the tightening, the stretching, the baby movements. All of those things will still be there in your birthing time, but with a lot less discomfort associated to them. They will feel differently. Okay. And so we use what's called hypnoanesthesia in these directives, in these mental directives. As you get towards the 3rd, 4th, and 5th week, it builds in hypnoanesthesia from the birthing body. So from the top of the breast to the middle of the thighs, we're producing hypnoanesthesia, and that's a real thing.
Wow.
Just so you know, there are people out there who are allergic to medical anesthetics. And so they work with a hypnotist ahead of time because they have to have surgery, whether it's medical or dental surgery. They work with a hypnotherapist. They listen to these tracks over and over and over again. So when they get to surgery day, there's no medical anesthetics, just hypnosis on board. And so the feeling of the cutting of the knife of the surgeon has been altered in their subconscious. We took out the file and put it over here that said it feels like this, and we built a new file that says it's going to feel like this. And so those people are able to have surgery, and that's what we do in Hypnobabies. So if and only if our students learn, practice, and use Hypnobabies as directed, they can have that kind of thing happening too, where they're cues, and there are many cues and techniques that they can use during their birthing. They'll be activated just like that. And we give them tracks to listen to that keep them in hypnosis, that keep deepening their hypnosis. We have what's called eyes open childbirth hypnosis, which simply means that in between birthing waves, which is what we call contractions, they're able to get up and move around and drink and walk and talk and communicate and do anything they want and still be deeply in hypnosis and more comfortable. Then when a birthing wave comes on, then they go into the deeper state of hypnosis and the hypnoanesthesia activates in the middle part of their body. So it's not like people think where they think, stage hypnosis and, people are quacking like a duck and all of that. Therapeutic hypnosis is very, very different.
Yeah.
Um, we're able to use it for phobias and fears and weight loss and stop smoking and stress release and all of those things. And we actually have those tracks at Hypnobabies for people who aren't pregnant. But people are able to use therapeutic hypnosis in a much different way than stage hypnosis, which is mostly all about people wanting to be part of the show. And that's great. It's fun. But real hypnosis is different. So that's what we do in Hypnobabies. And our students need to understand that it's going to be a process of you reading the materials because there's quite a lot of childbirth education in Hypnobabies. And that's important.
Mhm.
It's important because people need to understand how to advocate for themselves, how to empower themselves to make decisions that are going to benefit them and not other people during their birthing.
Yes.
And so, there's a lot of reading material, but also, every day they've got to listen to that track. And we also have affirmations. Now, affirmations are one line phrases. And we have an affirmation track that starts with pregnancy. I'm enjoying my pregnancy. My body works well. I love preparing for my birthing and so forth. And you listen to that every day, just cleaning your house, driving, whatever. It's not hypnosis, so you don't have to be in a fully supported position like a hypnosis track. And then so we're working from the outside in with the affirmations in helping to counteract negativity, which unfortunately a lot of people, pregnant people, come across every single day, and from the inside out with the hypnosis tracks. And that is basically reframing childbirth on many levels, emotionally, mentally, and physically.
Wow. It sounds a lot like over the course of time, like you said, you're building that muscle. And I was going to ask you, well, what is that muscle that you're building? But you kind of answered it in the sense that you are retraining your mind to believe different things about what childbirth is. Because if you come from a family where childbirth has always been a painful event or an uncomfortable event, then you automatically believe in your mind, hey, this is probably going to be how it is for me. But I'm assuming, and maybe you did, I'll ask you this, did you go to your friend who had a pain-free experience without Hypnobabies and ask them questions such as, what were your beliefs and expectations going into your birthing process? What did you think it was going to be like? Was it like that? How did you visualize it? What did you expect? Because I would gather that your friend had a very peaceful mindset and relaxed and stress-free mindset when it came to giving birth. I could be completely wrong. Did you ask your friend that?
No, I did, and she did. And so it does have a lot to do with expectation. However, for most people, that's not enough. It's not enough to just expect. We do want our hypno moms, which is what we call them,
Hmm.
or hypno students, to have a really positive outlook on this and to focus on what they want.
Hmm.
And the reason why is because your subconscious mind is like a 5-year-old child. So if consciously you are constantly thinking, I don't want a cesarean, I don't want an epidural, I don't want things to go bad like they did last time or like they did for my cousin, and your conscious mind is then getting through to the subconscious, and the subconscious says, huh, that's what she wants because she's focusing all the time on cesarean and epidurals and her cousin's birth. So we'll try to produce that. No. What we need to focus on is what we want. What we want is a more peaceful, joyful, more comfortable, easier birthing. And as soon as you start Hypnobabies, you have a much more confident outlook because of all of this. The hypnosis in it is all about childbirth being positive. And then, of course, there's the affirmations. So we want them to focus on what is the goal here. If the goal here is to have a great first birthing, oh, thank goodness, because then they're going to avoid that awful first birth that so many people have.
Yeah.
That just breaks my heart. If the goal might be for a second or subsequent time student to have a better birthing than last time. And that's basically what they want. So they need to think about it like this. They need to think about it like, if your goal was to buy a Cadillac, you would not go online and do a lot of research and go to different, places to look at VW Volkswagen bugs,
Yeah.
because that would not get you anywhere near your goal of getting a Cadillac.
Yeah. That's so
So
true.
what you focus on is what's going to get you to your goal, and it is the same in childbirth. So we really want our hypno students to and any pregnant person doing any method of childbirth whatsoever preparation needs to focus on what they want and not all the things that they're afraid of, because the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference. It will get in there just by virtue of it being a strong emotion. It will get right into the subconscious mind, and the subconscious mind will go, well, that's what she wants.
Yeah.
So let's prepare that for her. Let's make all the chemical processes in the body work in such a way that she's going to end up whatever the fear is.
Yes.
That's not what we want. We want all the hormones to be produced that they should be. We want all the muscles to stay relaxed. We want the temperature to stay down and the blood pressure to stay down. And all those things can happen if we focus on our real goal, which is to have a much better birthing.
It sounds like that's step one, is creating a goal of what do you want your birthing process to be versus what you don't want it to be.
Yeah,
Can we talk about something really important?
of
I
course.
feel that society doesn't make this easy for people. And when I say that, let's talk about something that I've already noticed a few times with you. I don't know if I'm sure you do it intentionally, but I've noticed it a few times already. Let's talk about language. All right. Society calls it labor. They call them contractions. You call labor the birthing time. You call contractions birthing waves. Why rename these words that have been around for so long? What's the value in renaming and using different language?
Fabulous question. One that we are asked all the time, but it has to do with association. So there are meanings to words. There is the denotation, which is the literal meaning of the word. And then there are connotations, which is the emotional meaning of the word. And that is different for everybody. So, for instance, labor is its basic meaning or definition is work. And so the association between the word labor and work in the first place is not what we want. Now, there are doulas and midwives out there who are saying, but labor is hard work, well, not necessarily. It is if you think it is, but what if it isn't? What if it can be much, much easier? And in telling people that labor is hard work, for instance, or warning people about things in pregnancy or childbirth, we're just increasing their fears.
Yeah.
What if we rearranged everything and reframed it so that labor itself is not work, and it's definitely not hard birthing work, which is another association that's very negative in people's minds. What if we called it the birthing or the birthing time or your birth? Because that's actually what it is, first of all. And secondly, now we have a different association with that thing, that time when we are going to give birth to our baby. We have an association that we will be birthing. And so the same thing applies to delivery. Delivery is basically somebody giving something to you. No, our hypno students give birth. They birth the baby. Somebody might be there with their hands out to grab a hold of the baby and pull it up onto the mom's chest, or she can do it herself, which is she's perfectly, or the hypno partner can do it.
Yeah.
The more that our students think about the fact that they are doing the birthing and giving birth, the more empowered they will feel, rather than delivery or delivered or my doctor delivered or is going to deliver, any of that
Mhm.
stuff. Transformation, for instance, is the word that we use for transition. Now, transition is a really great word that means the stage in between the active birthing, active labor, other people would call it, where you get to 10 centimeters and then start pushing. So in that last space of birthing is transition. However, and it's a great word. However, transition, excuse me, is when you're talking about birth stories, is almost always accompanied by words, bad words on either side of the word transition. Like,
Mhm.
when I got to transition, I lost it. Or transition was the hardest, or transition will be the hardest part of your labor. Well, those fears conjured up by the word transition of other people's experiences or their past experiences or what they read in a book. Transition is going to be the hardest part of your labor, but it will be the shortest, so don't worry.
Yeah.
That is very fear producing. So we changed it to transformation because we're transforming from the active stage of birthing into the pushing stage. And that association has made such a huge difference for our hypno students,
Yeah.
that now they can associate, because we do tell them that it's going to be the best part of their birthing. They're going to have the most hypnoanesthesia at that time because they're just about to push that baby out, which is such a joyous thing. Now they associate that time in their birthing with something super positive. So all of our words are positive because of association, word association.
I just want to say again how important it is what you do, because I haven't heard this, like, obviously we've been to the women's care and we've spoken to the doctors and everything's going great so far, but no one has empowered us, and especially my wife, in the way and with the knowledge that you've shared so far, because you're changing belief systems, you're changing expectations, the language you're changing. Some people might listen and they might say, what difference can a language shift really make? But again, like you've already mentioned, when you think of that word labor, think about the picture in your mind that it creates. When I hear labor, I see people in hard hats hitting the ground with sledgehammers and jackknives and all these things. Like, think about what these words actually create in your mind as a picture, and then think about what pictures created when you change these words. When you say birthing wave versus contractions in out, birthing
Yes.
wave seems peaceful and zen and spirit like it changes the entire vibe. And if you think about your hand being burned long enough, your hand will eventually get hot to the point that you might actually feel burned. If you think about these peaceful and zen-like images in your mind, it's almost impossible not to feel the way that you see in this picture.
Mhm. And it's funny you say birthing wave and contraction. Contraction is tightening, no
Mm,
matter how you spin it.
mhm.
And if 1,000 times in your Hypnobabies program you hear the word birthing wave, and it is accompanied by imagery and mental directives about how those birthing waves are going to be so much easier, that they're going to be felt in certain ways, that they can be accompanied by a color, or other feelings that you like, if it's coolness or warmness or anything like that, there's no tightening. There's no There's no negativity about the words birthing wave. There's only positive association. So again, association is very, very important. And another thing that's super important for people like you guys and all of our students is most pregnant people do not know that they are 100% in charge. And in every podcast, I make time to tell this because it is the most important thing that you will learn as far as childbirth education goes. In your pregnancy, in your birthing time, in your postpartum period, and with your baby's care, you are 100% in charge of all decisions and choices made. So while you're pregnant, if people tell you, well, now it's time for you to do such and such, could be a test, it could be your 38 weeks and they want to do a vaginal exam, which is absolutely useless. But it could break your water, or it could make you bleed,
Hmm.
or it could do other things and cause, that kind of intervention can cause issues. So you can say the words, no, thank you, I'm keeping my panties on. If you're in your birthing time and they suggest, and that's all they can do, because let me tell you, you have hired these people.
Mm.
Most people think, well, my doctor said I need to blah, blah. The nurse said I have to. You have hired these people. They work for you. So if they suggest a certain thing, an intervention or anything that does not work for you, that feels wrong for you, that you've done your research about, and you've decided that's not going to happen in your birthing, you get to say, I decline.
Yeah.
And the same thing with your postpartum period, and the same thing with your baby's care. Nobody needs to take your baby away unless the baby is seriously ill. Just say no, thank you. The baby will stay right on my chest while you check his heart, or, wipe him off. And we do suggest that our hypno students wipe their own baby off because,
Mm.
we don't want the baby to get cold, but just we have a whole process that we do called baby kindness, where the hypno parents, pat the baby dry. And that way it can't get cold from evaporation,
Mhm.
and then wrap the baby up against mom's skin. And all that can be done while, the nurse is feeling the baby's pulse, checking for temperature, checking for heart rate and breathing and all that stuff. They do not need to take the baby across the room or to another room to the nursery unless the baby is sick.
Yeah.
Now, people don't know this, that they can just say, I'm choosing not to do that, but it's true.
That's great to
So
know.
that is one of the most important things you are ever going to learn, because, and I'm not making these people out to be bad people at all. I have a healthy respect, for instance, for birthing nurses, the nurses in the L&D, because they have to be responsible for you, then the hospital that they have, are working in, and also the obstetrician who is working with you, who you have hired to be your physician during this birth. And they're responsible for all of those people. They have to make everyone happy and still keep their job. However, they are not in charge of you.
Mhm.
They can make suggestions, as the doctors can, and you can think about it. You can say the words, we're going to talk about this and we'll let you know what our decision is in about 10 minutes. As long as there's no emergency happening, obviously. And that way you're telling them a couple things. One is, I am in charge of my own birthing. And secondly, that you need to take some thoughtful time to make a decision, that it can't be just like, boom, because the doctor called and said, well, I want this medication given at this time. Uh, birth is not, your birth is not a McBirth. It is not a, thing where everybody gets the same thing. And for a long time, birth was managed in a certain way. You came in, they gave you drugs, they gave you Pitocin, they sped your birth up, the babies were pushed and pulled out, everybody got the same thing. Well, people are a lot wiser now.
Mm.
And so, unless there's something going wrong, unless there's a complication, then you can take the time to decide for yourself if interventions are warranted. If you want to choose them, you certainly can, but you can also say, I do not consent or I decline.
Yeah, that's valuable. It's valuable because it places the power back with us. And like you said, these medical professionals, I'm sure 99.9% of them are amazing people, great people. And I do believe that people do the best with the resources that they
Yes.
have. Although not everyone has the same resources, right? Not everyone does things the same. This nurse might have been the nurse for a month. She might be brand new. They might not know the best procedure. So being able to make those decisions yourself and the knowingness of that is very powerful. So let's talk about, because I'm curious about what happens after the birth and how Hypnobabies comes into play. What are some important suggestions and beliefs and knowings that come into play once baby is here? How does Hypnobabies continue after the birth?
Well, immediately after the birth, um, the mom can continue to use her hypnoanesthesia for when the placenta comes out. And we're hoping that the medical care professional will not pull the placenta out, because that could cause a lot of problems. But when it's time for the placenta to release and be born, our hypno student can use her hypnoanesthesia for that process, which can be a little crampy, along with the time when often nurses will take their hands and go like this and massage your uterus.
Mm-hmm.
It can be very helpful for you to use your hypnoanesthesia at that time. Also for breastfeeding, we do have a breastfeeding course at Hypnobabies, and we also have a single breastfeeding track that helps our breastfeeding moms to just relax and have a nice normal letdown without the tension that some people have when they're first starting to nurse their babies. But if there was any discomfort with letdown, you can use your hypnoanesthesia for that. Um, there's anybody can enter hypnosis. There are several cues in Hypnobabies to enter hypnosis with and help with anything. If their blood pressure is high, they can visualize it going down. If their temperature is too high, they can visualize their body making it normal. Things like that. The hypnosis can be used for many, many things. Of course, we also have new family tracks. We encourage people to continue using their hypnosis. So we have a track called After Baby Comes, and that helps you to sleep in sync with your baby, feel very confident as a new parent, all using hypnosis. You're not going to be listening to it while you're holding your baby, just like the breastfeeding track is not listened to while you're holding your baby, because it's an actual hypnosis track that takes you, they both are, it takes you deeply into hypnosis and, then gives you these mental directives. So the effects come afterwards in post hypnotic suggestions. And we have a toddler sleepy time track because a lot of new moms already have a toddler and they need them to sleep so they can fuss with the baby. Oftentimes our students will get that track so they can just listen to their tracks while their toddler is sleeping. So it's really awesome. And we have, our weight loss set and things like that. But just after the baby comes, you can still use your hypnosis very, very well. Just keep using the cues. We have a peace cue, we have a release cue, we have a relax cue, we have physical cues. And those can come into play to help make you much more comfortable and relaxed with your new baby.
I'm curious. You've been doing this long enough to have a really great sample size of this. How many of your clients that you've had for 15 to 20 years say to you, my baby's 20 years old now, but I still use these suggestions and cues just to relax and be in this moment now? Like, how many of your clients say that?
Well, we have a lot of people write us. We have a Facebook moms support group. We call it the mom support group, but it's for people who are even interested in hypnobabies and want to learn more, and they often tell us, or send us PMs or emails saying, I just used it for dental work. I, used it to help with my fear of needles. I mean, we do have a whole track for that, but you can use it for if you have a fear of needles, to help your veins stay up, not go flat, and be much more comfortable right there where you're, or on your hand or your wrist or whatever. So they do use it for many other things, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
They're, being smart as far as I'm concerned, and still using hypnosis and the hypnoanesthesia for other issues in their lives to make it better.
I love that. Is that mom support group something that someone listening right now can go and join, even if they haven't purchased your services or your course, just to check
Yes,
it out?
they can go to hypno-moms.com, and that takes you right to our Facebook group. And if you're interested, we don't have birth professionals on there like doulas or midwives, with the exception of Hypnobabies instructors. There are a few on there, and we answer questions every day to our students, and we read their beautiful birth stories and encourage them. Because you also have to realize that our students are doing something very, very different.
Yeah.
Not only are they choosing a more natural way, which is very different, to prepare for their baby's birth, but they're also using hypnosis, which is looked upon with, you know, interest, some good, some bad interest by other people. So we provide them with a space where they can come on and share what's going on with them, and hear from other students, other hypno students. Maybe they're asking a question, but 10 other people have that question.
Mhm.
And so we answer everybody's questions and encourage them and support them. And, as I said, their birth stories are fabulous and we love them. So
Yeah, I'm sure.
they come on there and tell us their birth stories, and usually put a picture or two on there. And that is so gratifying to be a part of.
Yes. The thing is, and it confuses me, is everything that you're saying makes sense and is logical and is a different way of doing things, and in my opinion is a better way of doing things. When do you think there will be a time where a couple goes in, gets their first ultrasound, discovers for sure that they are in fact pregnant, right? And they know that this journey is in front of them. Do you believe that there will be a time when that midwife looks at them and says, okay, we have some resources for you to help you in this time, to help you prepare. Hypnobabies is one of them. This is what that looks like. Do you believe that there is a point in the future where this will be a normal and educated piece of society?
I would hope so. We have a lot of midwives who really love hypnobabies because it makes their job so much easier.
Yeah.
You got to realize that midwives, they are working with people who are having home birth or birth center births and some hospital births, but for the most part, there are no drugs available. So they just have to, I hate to put it this way, watch and listen to people be in a lot of pain. So it makes their job a lot easier for their students to do hypnobabies, doulas as well. When a doula attends a hypnobaby's birth, it is a lot easier for them to do their job, and they enjoy it a lot more. Doctors are seeing hypnobabies here and there. They also see people doing hypnobirthing of different kinds, other kinds that's not going as well. They've seen a lot of that. And I'm not putting those people down, because anybody who helps somebody who's pregnant have a better birthing, I am totally on board with.
Hmm.
However, there are now a myriad of programs and techniques, and just like people will just buy one track and it says Susie's hypnobirthing track.
Yeah.
It's not it's not enough, and that's why Hypnobabies is what it is. It's basically, a doula described it as hypnobirthing with wings. You know, it's the real deal. It's super, super intense. There's a lot of listening. There's a lot of reading, and you have to actually use and activate the hypnosis cues, which is easy as anything during your birthing. Um, but it's well worth it.
Yes.
And as long as people learn, practice, and use it as directed, that they're going to have an easier time of it.
And I appreciate that you're upfront about this is still like this will take time. This is a process. This is something that you have to you can't just skip a week and then get back to it, right? I guess maybe it can and still get better results than not doing it at all, but you have to be regimented with this. And like you said, it's like going to the gym and you take a few weeks off and you lose the progress that you made for the first few weeks. And I know there's some people listening who say this is absolutely for me, but Kerry, I just don't have the time. I'm already going to appointment after appointment. I'm working. I'm doing all these different things, and this is already a different part of my life. I've had to adjust my schedules, routines. This isn't something where they have to hop on a Zoom call with someone every single day. Can you give us an idea of it? So your course is Hypnobabies Childbirth Hypnosis course. Give us an idea of what a day by day looks like when
Okay.
people go through this course, if you could.
Okay, so this is what we suggest. You get the course and you have some reading to do to, at the beginning, which tells you what is going to happen and, what you're going to be doing, which is basically you listen to one deep hypnosis track a day. And that we suggest that you do when you lay down to go to sleep at night. And you're saying to yourself right now, how in the world, if I listen to it while I'm sleeping, is this going to work? Well, it's called sleep training, and you're basically in your sleep bypassing the critical faculty automatically as soon as you drift off to sleep. So your inner mind is open, willing, ready, and accepting of all the suggestions. Now, we want you to know what's on each track. So it's really great if, at one point, as soon as you start a new track, you just put it on in the background. Do not lay down, do not get relaxed, do not drive with it on, because the binaural beats music also helps you to enter what we call trance, which is a hypnotic state, a somnambulistic hypnotic state. And as soon as that music starts, your inner mind clicks in.
Mm.
So no driving, but just listen to it and listen to what the next cue or technique is. Listen to what the directives are. Then when you are directed to every night when you go to bed, listen to that hypnosis track. And you will have in the beginning about 15 to 20 minutes a day of reading. So just pick a time after lunch or when the baby's napping or, after breakfast in the morning and read your Hypnobabies, or just before you go to bed at night, which is also great because it's all super positive. And then you're going to listen to your affirmations track anytime. You can listen to it while you're cooking dinner, lunch, driving, playing with the kids. Just listen to those affirmations play there. It's about 35, 40 minutes, something like that. And everybody can basically do this.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can find those amounts of time. And then once you've gone through the 6-week course, there is no more reading. It's just basically listening to the hypnosis track and listening to your affirmations track. So everybody can find the time to do that, especially if you're doing your hypnosis in your sleep.
Yes. And the thing is, people are like, well, how is that effective? At least from what I understand, the subconscious mind is always active. Even when you're sleeping, it's always on the lookout for, what's going on in your environment, what's being said. And when you're sleeping, like you said, it removes that the critical piece of your conscious mind that's always awake, that's ready to denounce whatever is said. So that's powerful.
Yeah, and people don't realize that we're in states of hypnosis all the time.
Even right
I
now.
mean, right now, if you are listening to something and it's just, that's all you're doing is listening, or if you're watching something, a screen of any kind, you're in hypnosis. After a few minutes, you just enter a light alpha state. Anytime that we are waking up and going to sleep, anytime we are reading like a book or playing a game, video games, you know how you will call somebody's name and it takes a few minutes for them to disconnect from whatever they're doing because they're so deeply engrossed in the game.
Hmm.
If we're daydreaming and when we're driving, we get into a state of hypnosis. So we're in states of hypnosis all the time. And this is just basically directing the state of hypnosis to become more deep to a place where we call somnambulism, where hypnoanesthesia can be created and the mind can accept all of those directives. And then obviously, we're reprogramming or redirecting the inner mind to have a better birthing, to perceive birthing better, to perceive pregnancy as natural and normal, all of that. And so everything that we do in Hypnobabies is positive.
I love that. And I think what you do is beautiful. And I'm so glad that you made the time to be here with us today.
Thank
Guys,
you.
there's links in the description for Kerry's Hypnobabies childbirth hypnosis course, so you can check this out for yourself. I'll also include a link to the Hypnomoms group, so you can take a look at that if it makes sense for you. And my final question for you, Kerry, is you've been doing this a while, several decades now. Where do you envision Hypnobabies moving to next? What's the next chapter of Hypnobabies? What does it look like for you?
Well, we're right now working on communicating with insurance companies to cover Hypnobabies because it will cut their costs. And
Mm,
that's going
that's a big step.
to challenge. Let's put it that way. But I would really, obviously we're going to keep doing what we do. And the way that Hypnobabies started becoming what it is, which is super popular, was by word of mouth. So we still have that going on. We still have people on social media telling each other, because and I hate to say this, but on certain groups and lists and forums, there are people who want to come on and tell awful birth stories to people who are still pregnant.
Hmm.
And if you tell a positive birth story on places like that, they do not like it because everyone else has had a negative um, time of it. But it's important. It's important for our students to share that they had a joyous birthing, that Hypnobabies was a big part of, so that more people can learn that it's a possibility for them. That it doesn't have to be either going in at 2 centimeters and getting your epidural and laying flat on your back for 12 hours and then having the baby pushed and pulled out of you, which is fine. I had an epidural with my first child, and I have a healthy respect for people who choose an epidural because it hurt like holy warts. I needed an epidural. Um, but there's that, or there's basically what they call gutting it out. Well, that's just not necessary. There is another way.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that other way. And it's great that you've created a community and a forum where people can share those great birthing experiences versus what you might find if you just do a simple Google search on birthing experiences. You might find more bad than good. So knowing where to look, being in the right community of people is super important, and you're growing that community.
Yes.
And I'm very glad that you joined me today on the show. And I know this was helpful for so many people. So thank you again for making the time to be here. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to do it.
Thank you, Kerry. Whether you're a new parent, you want to be a parent, or you've already had your first baby, your next baby, whatever it might be, and you're looking for a different way, something different than what society and the medical companies and big pharma tell you, Hypnobabies is an amazing alternative that incorporates something that's been around for ages, hypnosis, yet is still taboo for whatever reason, in order to have an incredible birthing experience and parenting experience. I know that myself, my wife, will be checking it out. We'll be doing more research. But if you've listened to this and you're already thinking, this sounds amazing, I want more information on this, there's links in the description to both Kerry's course as well as the Hypno Moms group that you can check out. And for those listening, that's hypno-moms.com, hypno-moms.com. But links are in the description too, free to check out after you listen or watch the show. If you found value from this conversation with Kerry, like I did, please like and share this episode with just one other person who could use it as well. We've grown the way that we have because you are the best part of the Be Better team. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.